Looking forward to this conversation. We always do. Whenever Sean Salisbury is going to jump in. Weather and Dip sponsored by Innova International. And another friendly reminder that everything here at 95.7 The Game sponsored by Fremont Bank. Full-service banking, no compromises. Dibs, I think it was a number of weeks ago, back-to-back conversations. One while you were still having little Maya.
Yeah.
And Sean came in and did a show with us. And then when he joined us the week after you came back. On both of those conversations, Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers came up as a subject.
Oh.
And I've sort of been like, fun idea, but come on. That's not really, like the 49ers, they're not going to do that, right? And the deeper we look into it, the more sense it makes, the more reporters talk about what teams are in on this. The 49ers name keeps coming up. Hey, Sean Salisbury, that was a pretty interesting idea you threw out there a number of weeks ago.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's I don't consider myself an insider. I just consider myself logic and smart. Sometimes I'm smart, I think, but it's just football, guys. I mean, I think that and I know it seems a little outlandish, but we're at a time when running backs aren't going to make you pay. Teams that go, now if you're Carolina, you try to hold somebody hostage, but at what point do you say, well, we need a first and a third? Nobody's going to trade for that as good as McCaffrey is. So the logic to me, and I don't think it's just going to be the Rams, with the Cam Akers situation now, obviously. I don't think it's just going to be the Rams and the 49ers that are inquiring. I mean, the Buffalo Bills could use somebody to run it a little bit better. I can name a handful of teams that are going to be playoff quality type teams, or at least looking for that ability to move him in the slot. He's really ubiquitous. He's everywhere, man. So I and the 49ers, what better team to utilize every friggin' skill set that he has? We know they love to run it. We know they love to be multiple with Deebo Samuel. Now you get even more versatility. Put yourself in a defensive coordinator's shoes and saying when they're healthy and Kittle and Ayuk and Deebo and McCaffrey, they're all on the field. And then you say to yourself, okay, how am I putting a game plan in when Kyle can put both of them in the backfield at the same time? Can motion them out to the slots or put them out to the slots and shift them to the slot and then motion one back to the backfield. I mean, it's limitless, and you don't have to do a lot, but you just have to make it look like you're doing a lot. So I think when I brought it up, I wasn't trying to make it hyperbolic or hyperbole. I was just trying to make it logic with injuries and a team that's a Super Bowl caliber roster to add a guy. And I do not believe it's going to take a high first-round pick to do it. I don't. I think running backs these days, while important, people are willing to part with them for assets. Third-round pick, fifth-round pick. Now, McCaffrey's better than a third-round pick, but unfortunately, we've devalued running backs in this league, and they feel like different guys can do it. I would be hot on McCaffrey's trail because I do believe that they're going to try to find an exodus of more than, well, you saw Robbie Anderson and now moving on. They got a lot to do there, and McCaffrey is their number one asset.
Yeah, a bit of a fire sale feel after they fired the coach, and you mentioned they got rid of their top receiver. What's going on with the 49ers run game outside of potentially getting McCaffrey? It seems like they've hit a little bit of a wall in what they normally like to do.
You know what? I think that they probably know that. And you guys, we all know they don't want to run it 16 times. And look at who they played last week and just flip the script on. They were the 49ers last week, although if you added maybe 9 more throws to what the Atlanta Falcons did, that's who the 49ers want to be, in that 22 to 28 range, 25 range, and go 18 to 25 and run it 35 times. That's who they want to be. And then you look at Arthur Smith. He's known what it's in the past to be able to run play action, efficient out of play action. The ball did not hit the ground but once for Mariota. They ran it 40 times. It looked like that was who the 49ers were supposed to be. So, listen, you can only lose so many players, or lose, when Mostert was hurt, now he's gone, and then another player gets hurt, and another player, again, and the offensive line as well, trying to find that continuity of being fully healthy. And they've been depleted, but you don't have time to wait. You still got to play the games. They're not giving anybody time off for injuries, so you got to find the mix. And I think Kyle and this staff realize right now that they cannot dominate the line of scrimmage with injuries. And, guys, let's face facts. We always talk about, and I think I don't know if overrate, and it's fair because it's been such a long, they've got a long body of work of it. But we get to the point we just think, well, anybody can play running back in a Shanahan system, or something, one of the guys who's been in that Shanahan off that tree, and they can just run it because they know how to teach it. Well, guys, one thing that I know works in NBA, you guys got it right there in Golden State and the NFL teams, is talent. I'm not saying the guys aren't talented, but at some point when you're a third or fourth string running back, you're not the best guy on the roster. I mean, let's face facts. There's a reason why there's a depth chart. So you can't always just overcome it and rush for 160 yards a game with a guy who may be a backup or a third guy once in a while. Guys like McCaffrey hit the hole. It's just different. And so I think it's the lack of the reason there's a little lack of commitment is, number one, the situation in a football game, but number two is I just don't think they can trust it as much because they're not dominating the line of scrimmage with injuries, and you're missing a step in the backfield. It's simple. It comes down to talent sometimes, and guys who execute it. They need to get healthy in a lot of ways, and that'll help their run game, but they probably need an extra kick in the backfield, and the guy in Carolina ain't half bad, and I think just makes you a better football team as long as you don't have to mortgage anything for the future.
Yeah, exactly. The more I look at the numbers, the contract, the ask, what we think it might be, the more sense this is starting to make to see if the 49ers can get in there. Sean Salisbury with us on Willard and Dibs. You mentioned injuries a couple of times, Sean, and I wonder if you have any experience with this where you're on a team that they just had the bad injury luck. Whatever it is, it seems like it's that team for Kyle Shanahan almost every year, and fans want to assess why and how. Is it strength and conditioning? Is it that they're drafting or signing too many players with injury history? Is it just dumb luck? What do you think?
Probably a combination of all of it, and I don't want to be the guy who's just like, hey, it all sounds good. I think it'd be absolutely, for anybody out there to suggest that the training and the conditioning and training, conditioning, health and conditioning, all that stuff that goes on with a strength and conditioning staff, that it's them, that they're doing it the wrong way. Most teams in this league follow if not the same, but a fairly similar path to the type of equipment. Now, you'll get an out-of-the-box thinker once in a while, and I don't know much about the background. I grew up in the days when Jerry Attaway was with San Francisco during Super Bowl runs, and because Jerry was with us at SC, and some of the old-school Redskins, or now the Commanders, obviously, guys that had been in the league a long time, and the strength and conditioning. So, and it's changed, and it does change, but I think it is bad luck. And I have been on teams. I remember in Minnesota, and Lowe and I think we just mentioned this the other day, is I came to the line when I was playing. Brian Billick came up to me one day. We were depleted in the backfield. We had wide receiver injury. We were on offense. We were depleted. We had good defense. And Brian came to me during pregame warm-ups one day. He goes, "It's just me and you today, bud." Meaning we're going to have to let it rip, and we're going to drop back and throw it until we can't throw it anymore because we were so depleted. That's how we were going to have to win the game, because we were into the depths of playing backs that hadn't played much, and you start to, where are you going to go with it? And so I smirk about it now, but I remember the day vividly and where he told it to me. So, and it is, there's injury history. Some guys' threshold of pain's a little different than others. Luck becomes part of it. I don't think the 49ers are the team like, yep. And guys, every year there's a team like this, right? And I know the 49ers have had, the last 3 or 4 years, every year it seems like we're talking about this, whether it was Kittle in the past or the run game or offensive line. Yeah, we have. But I think that if you go into a lot of cities, guys, that you're going to hear the same thing. Yeah, my guy's banged up. This hamstring's hurt. Oh, look at our kicker. I think you'll get that a lot of places. So I think it's a combination of all of it. You got to be a little lucky with the injuries. But I think when this happens, the first thing you do, it'd be like a team. Remember the Mets guys a handful of years ago when every single guy was getting Tommy John?
Yep.
The pitching staff, and they fired. I think they got rid of it was either the pitching coach or their strength and conditioning guy, because they said this is too weird. So if you do a deep dive, maybe they need to change up something. I don't know, because I'm not in their weight room every day, but I do think it's a combination, and bad luck sucks when it comes to injuries, but that's where John Lynch and Kyle in the offseason scouting, you have got that producing rosters, guys, the attrition, the attrition that comes with it, but injuries, by the time you hit November, your backups better be ready to play. They're going to be the difference in 2 or 3 wins, because your starting receiver can't be there, your running back. So that's not, we talk about the starters, but in truth, the nucleus of your football team is the other guy. Just like in any business, the guys we don't talk about very much usually end up making your franchise or your business a success, because they do it quietly and they're always reliable. And the team with the most depth a lot of times is standing at the end too, as long as they've got a few good superstars and a good quarterback.
And the Niners have good depth in the roster, and it'll be tested this weekend with Kansas City. You mentioned stepping back and letting it rip. The run game has not been high octane, but Is it too dangerous to try to get into a passing contest with Kansas City and let Jimmy G rip?
So it's too dangerous if you think you got to match Mahomes throw for throw. You're gonna have good luck with that, because just like if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you're not going to get into, if everybody was healthy and at their best, you're not going to get into a ball control, run the ball 40 times like Kyle wants to. So they both have their strengths, because they consider about 10 or 12 passes a game an extension of the run. A little shallow cross, a screen, a little shovel pass to Kelsey in the red zone down by the goal line. So, listen, I'm a big believer in, I love putting a game plan in, but I love adjustments. If you get to a point in the game where you try putting your game plan in, and sometimes it's a square peg in a round hole, and you say, you know what, dude? We got to do it. Now, you're not going to attack it the way that they do. They'll vertical, they have speed, they're going to do a lot of things, and you're not going to be able to play off schedule either like Mahomes does, because the physical skill set and talent, we're talking about one dude who's an alien and the other guy who's a good player. And aliens are, they can do some crazy-ass things with sidearm and throwing it around their back. So, and that's Mahomes, and their weapons are different even without Tyreek Hill. So when I get into a throwing contest, they can. I mean, you can. We've seen it in the past. I think it was the New Orleans game a couple years ago, right? Guys, they can do it, but I think it's the way you approach it. Now, if that means throwing it 12 times on a shallow cross and screen, and then mixing in a seam route with Kittle, and then taking your shot down the field, I don't have a problem with it, but it's got to be judicious and it's got to be smart. But the thing you want to do is, if you do that, is limit the possessions of the dude on the other sideline, because eventually they're going to get you, even with a great defense. Now, what does get you mean? Does it mean like they did against Buffalo, not scoring the 30s? And as good as Buffalo's defense is, this 49ers defense is better. Now, injuries, you got to everybody, but their depth, because when they're healthy on all three levels, they're an elite defense on all three levels, meaning the 49ers. So, and the Chiefs are going to give you their best because they're coming off a loss, and Andy doesn't let that fester too long. So I don't want them to get into that contest, but if you tell me they have to, and you're doing it smart, I'm okay with it. But I still think maybe you throw early and hopefully you spread them out a little, and then you can pound them with a little bit of run. But the Chiefs score so quickly, there will be no lead safe in this game, even as good as the 49ers defense is.
Yeah, Sean, you know what? You mentioned Tyreek Hill, and I got to tell you, when watching them against the Bills last week, it was the first time we were all waiting for it this year. Like, how do they look different? Last week for me, the first time I watched the Chiefs and went, oh, this is why their offense looks different without Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Like, right? Did you see that? And
100%.
How can the 49ers sort of make it look that way again?
Well, here's the key for me, and I think that's great. And the 49ers are blessed because they are so good defensively. So they're going to be, and as Buffalo is, but remember, Buffalo is playing with a Poyer who's been a little banged up and had to get on a drive 15 hours both ways or whatever it was because of his lung. Right. And then you got no Micah Hyde and no Tre'Davious White. So, and Buffalo's still playing good defense. Well, the 49ers have to take a back seat to nobody when their defense is right. Now, you're 100% correct. Now, they got some guys that can run, but it's kind of different, right? Think about when Tyreek Hill's there. What it does, even if he's not dominating, and you take a look at what he's doing in Miami, right?
Right.
The game's changed for them. When Tyreek Hill's on Kansas City's team, even if he doesn't catch 9 balls for 160 yards, he affects everything the defense does, because you have to roll coverage to him, because a slant route turns into a 75-yard touchdown. And it can happen twice in a game, and then he can run by you. So he takes the top off, but he's not just a speed guy. He can run across the field and horizontally and catch and run after the catch, and he's phenomenal at it. So it changes the way you defend. Now you're playing the Chiefs. In truth, do you really think you need to double Juju Smith-Schuster? I don't. Not yet. Not anymore. Not right now. And Hardman, what you got to do, and the 49ers tackle well. To me, if I'm playing them, they're every part of my attention. I'm going to make Mahomes beat me with somebody else. Kelsey doesn't get to beat me. And when other teams have taken him away where he hasn't dominated a game, whether it's 4 touchdowns on 20 yards receiving or 18 catches on 180 yards, you have got to limit his third down possessions, win on first down. So that's the way you do it, because when both of them were there and you're like, oh, damn. How do we do both of this with now you take away Kelsey and make Mahomes beat you somewhere else? That's the advantage. And tackle in space, even without Tyreek Hill. I think it's going to be a fun game. You got to hit the quarterback and make him play. We say off schedule, but out of rhythm to where it's not the comfortable off schedule he likes to play. Kelsey cannot dominate this game, or it'll be different.
Yep, I think it's a big Bosa game. They held him down for 3.5 quarters. Very different group 3 years ago, but has to have a similar type of look. Sean, always awesome to have your insight. Thanks so much, man.
You guys are great. Appreciate it every week. Thank you.
Okay, there it is. That's Sean Salisbury right here on Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.